But about 2 weeks before, we actually got an email. I was at work, and we were both at work, and my wife forwards me this email, and it says, "This is such I can't remember the name from Disney Shoreside Concierge Services, and we would like to offer you a complimentary upgrade to Concierge on your upcoming cruise."
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the DCL Duo podcast. As you can tell from hearing my voice and not Brian's voice, it's Sam today. I am solo hosting, but I am not alone. I'm super excited because I've got a longtime listener, but first-time guest on the show. And he's a Patreon too. So first I got to say thank you to Matt for being a Patreon. And then I'm going to say welcome to the show, Matt.
Thank you so much, Sam. It's a real pleasure to be on.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have you. Now, we're going to talk today about a cruise you just took in March on the Disney Fantasy. But I understand you guys have been on kind of a fast journey to platinum. Tell me, first, let's start with the Disney background. What got you into Disney kind of in the first place? And then what got you into the cruise line? And a very quick succession to platinum.
Sure. Yeah. So my wife and I both grew up in the Southeast. And so we had both been to Disney as kids, either with our families or on school trips. But we were not Disney adults or Disney people. I would say the first 10 or 12 years we were together, we may have not said the word Disney to each other. Our daughter was born, we have two kids, a daughter who's 15 and a son who's 13. And our daughter was born in 2010. And when she was about 3, she got, I don't remember if we bought it or if it was a gift, but it was, do you know the little people? They're like those little plastic toys.
Oh, yeah.
So it was like a plastic castle with the princess little people. And when you took the princess and put them on like this chair or throne or whatever, it would play their song. So it would play Beauty and the Beast, Tale as Old as Time for Belle, or so on and so forth. And she became obsessed with this toy. Whoever bought it for her sort of didn't know they were changing the trajectory of our family.
Say thank you, or maybe no thank you.
Yes, who knows? Sort of a mixed blessing. But So around the time she was 4 and our son was 2, my wife said, well, we should take him to Disney World. So we went down. It was 2015. Took our first trip and we got hooked. And we've gone back to Walt Disney World about every other year since then. And then we live in Tennessee, so we can drive or fly. It's not too far to get down there. So it was around 2019. We started thinking about, my daughter had a good friend who the family cruised a lot. And so we gave our kids for Christmas a Disney cruise. So made a big production of it, had this huge box filled with balloons and all these little hints, like a swimsuit and a pirate, something pirate, because we knew there was this pirate night, of course, which we'd never been to. And so we took our first cruise in January 2020 on the Magic. It was a 5-night, and it was actually a Marvel Day at Sea. So, weird that we would do that for our first cruise. We're not huge Marvel fans.
They were like 9 and 7 or thereabouts?
Yes, okay. Exactly. So we did that. And then, of course, COVID hit soon after that. But we went on our first one after that in fall of 21. So right when they were still doing all the testing and everything.
Yeah, right. Very shortly after the reopening, because I think the reopening was in August. So
yes. It was Halloween. My wife's birthday is Halloween. So I remember specifically we went on a 3-night on the Dream for her birthday. And we have been on, this one on the Fantasy was my wife and I's 11th cruise and our kids' 10th. So we did take one for our anniversary, our 20th anniversary by ourselves. But most of them have been together as a family.
Yeah. Well, good job in taking one without the kids. I think I think people forget, one, that Disney cruises are not just for families. They can also be for adults. And 2, I just think it's really wonderful when adults who are married to each other decide to take vacations without their children, because I actually think it's a very healthy thing to do as a couple, to have time without your children, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's very rare for us because we don't have family that live right here around us. We have to do a lot of logistics to plan for that, but we managed to make that one work. It was wonderful.
Awesome. All right. Well, tell me, why did you choose the Fantasy? This is actually your third time, I think you said, on the Fantasy. So why the Fantasy again? What ships have you hit and what ships have you not hit at this point?
So we have been on the Fantasy and the Dream. We've been on the Magic, both as a family, and that was the one we went on, just the two of us. And we have been on the Wish a few times and the Treasure. So we have not been on the Wonder yet, and we have not been on the Destiny or the Adventure, but each of the other ones. We chose the Fantasy sort of because of our timing. It was spring break. Port Canaveral is the easiest for us to either fly down or drive. We're very comfortable with going out of Port Canaveral. We kind of have our traditions going out of there that we do as a family, which we can talk about. But so it was more the schedule of that week, and it being our spring break and the ease of going out of Port Canaveral on a 4-night.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you get to go to Lookout Cay as well as a part of this 4-night. Your itinerary Nassau and Lookout Cay, which is a nice itinerary, for one of those short-ish sailings, right? A 4-night, yeah. But you get that extra, as I like to call it, that extra sea day at Nassau. If you're one of those people who doesn't get off the ship at Nassau.
We are, yeah. And I'd say the Fantasy was really where we did our first longer cruise was a 7-night Eastern Caribbean on the Fantasy, when they still did those on the Fantasy. And that's really where we kind of fell in love with Disney Cruise, I'd say, on that.
That's where we fell in love with Disney Cruise Line, the 7-night Eastern Caribbean on the Fantasy. It was our first 2 cruises that we took were 7-night Eastern on the Fantasy. And then we repeated that a couple of times until the Treasure came out. We definitely had sailed probably the most number of nights on the Fantasy. And now I'd say the Wonder and the Treasure are getting, I haven't done the math to figure out like which ship we've been on actually the most number of nights. I honestly have no idea at this point, because we've done quite a few like shorter sailings, right, on like the Magic. But we've done, a few, back to back on the Wonder, or 7-night on the Wonder, right? So I have really no concept of it at this point. Yeah. All right, well, let's dive into the planning of this cruise. You guys were headed.
That's right. Yeah. So last summer, we took our kids to Universal for the first time, and it sort of worked out. It was just after Epic had opened, and so we got to go to all 3 parks. And it sort of worked out that it kind of worked out financially better to just get an annual pass to the 2 older parks, so Islands of Adventure and Universal Studios. And so we managed to plan it. We flew down there. We just got Southwest Airlines here. I live in Knoxville, Tennessee. And so we were one of the first flights on Southwest out of Knoxville down to MCO. And we went a couple days early and used that annual pass and stayed at Portofino Bay and went to both parks there. The 2 sort of legacy Universal parks. One kind of fun thing we did that we surprised the kids with was Universal has its Mardi Gras going on it doesn't just last during Mardi Gras season, it goes really all spring. And they have a parade every night in Universal Studios Park. And we signed up, it's called the Ride and Dine, where it includes a lunch, and then you actually get to ride on the float and throw beads. So if you've always wanted to do that in New Orleans, and of course, most of us will never get to do that. We may go to Mardi Gras, but we'll never be able to be in one of the crews and ride on the floats. It was super, super fun. We were on this huge float called the Gator Float. It was the last float in the parade. And we had to kind of climb up this ship's ladder to get up to the very top. And there was a cast member there with us who actually was from Nashville. So we got to chat with him about, that was not planned, but chat with him about that. And we were wearing sort of like these kind of vests, and you got to be up there high and ride through the park, and it was super fun. Yeah.
Did they make you wear masks? Because okay. So in New Orleans, for those who don't know, if you ever go to a Mardi Gras parade, all of the crew members, the folks who are throwing, there's a rule, and they all the crews have these rules about their costumes, and they're typically wearing masks and hats or masks and wigs, and so you're basically obscuring like who you are, because you're just supposed to be this anonymous crew member. And the reason I know so much about Mardi Gras is because Brian used to ride in the crew of Endymion with his dad, and my mother-in-law used to ride in the Muses, which are two very large crews in New Orleans who ride, every year for Mardi Gras. But yeah, so there's all this
That's
lore.
amazing. I did not know that. I've heard him talk about New Orleans on the podcast and his love of New Orleans, but I did not know that. Yeah.
Yeah. His folks spend part of the year in New Orleans every year. Although
we had a vest, each different float. When you showed up at a meeting area, then we had a vest they gave us that was a different color depending on which float you were on. And they were sort of in that kind of Mardi Gras style, but I think it was really a safety vest that was sort of a stylish safety vest.
Oh, yeah, like so bright colors.
Yes. Yeah. And then they took us all backstage because all the floats are parked backstage to actually get on the float. And they were very clear, you can't take any pictures while you're back there or anything. And then, rode the float out and rode around and came back. So it was super fun. We did that the second night we were there, and then kind of hightailed it back to the resort and got in the car and drove over to Port Canaveral.
Awesome. Now, I got to say, I'm jealous. I want to do that because I never wanted to join one of the crews because it's like a big commitment to because you go every year, you pay membership fees. It's actually quite expensive to do, but I would love to do it as like a one-time thing. So to me, actually doing it at like Universal might be the perfect, one time. It's probably expensive to do the one time, but then it's a kind of a one.
It actually was very reasonable because it included lunch as well. And when we ate the lunch, it was like a 3-course meal at one of the restaurants. And I'm like, what we paid pretty much covered the lunch. It seemed like. So actually it really wasn't that expensive. I think we got a little discount because we were annual pass holders, but it was pretty reasonable.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Well, you guys have a family tradition of something you like to do. I know the night before your cruise, but before we get there, because there was a big surprise that was revealed, Tell the audience what happened. I don't know how long it was before your cruise. You got a very special phone call with some Mickey magic.
Yes. So we were booked in a veranda room aft. So I believe it was on deck 8, all the way in the back with the larger oversized veranda. We typically stay in a veranda room. We had never stayed at this particular room, and we were kind of excited about the larger veranda and what that would be like, and the sail away, from the ports from the aft room. But about 2 weeks before, we actually got an email. I was at work, and we were both at work, and my wife forwards me this email, and it says, "This is such I can't remember the name from Disney Shoreside Concierge Services, and we would like to offer you a complimentary upgrade to Concierge on your upcoming cruise. There's a slight increase in the cost. It's an extra few $100s in gratuities, automatic gratuities for the concierge staff. But other than that, no additional cost. And if you're interested, call us." So she forwards me the email, and is this spam? Is this for real? And I said, "Well, call. We'll see." And so, of course, it was. She called and sort of in disbelief. And so they changed our room. The Fantasy just went through a dry dock last fall. And one of the changes was adding some concierge rooms on the 10th deck. Previously, it had just been deck 11 and deck 12. And so they were family veranda rooms, deluxe veranda rooms that were, I can talk a little bit about stateroom in a bit, but kind of outfitted with some concierge touches. And so we moved into one of those rooms. And we couldn't believe it. I mean, because as you know, we've done several cruises, but we just never felt like we were sort of, quantity over quality. We never really felt like we could justify concierge. We'd rather go on 2 cruises than one concierge cruise. And so it was just really exciting and something new for us, because we've been on several cruises. We're always looking to, add a touch or do something new. And so that was super exciting. And then we decided to keep it a surprise from our kids. So we decided we would let them know sometime much closer to the trip. So we did not let them know originally.
I'm curious. You and I talked a little bit pre-show. Do you have any theories about why? Because I have no idea. Like, we've heard people who are on their second cruise or their, 10th cruise, like getting these random, upgrades. And I know that it's got to be, of course, subject to availability type issues, right? Like, they're not going to upgrades. If concierge is full or close to full, they're not going to give anyone a complimentary upgrade. But I'm curious if you have any theories about why your family got selected or anything like that.
Well, yeah, it's so funny because we actually got a deal on the cruise when we booked it because they were running a rate that was, I think the kids sailed for 50% or something like that. And so we actually booked the room originally for a lesser price than typical. But we talked a lot about that, Angie, my wife and I. We think first and foremost, they probably needed our room. So probably they had maybe an oversell on guaranteed rate rooms. And so our room that we were staying in was more valuable to them than maybe an empty concierge room. Now, why we particularly were chosen, who knows? It could have been random. Of course, our theory was, well, these folks have kind of done everything. They're obviously repeat customers and they've been on several cruises, but they've never done concierge. And so maybe this will hook them on concierge going forward, or I don't know. But who knows why they chose us? And it was one of those things that, we were very blessed to have that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Dear Disney Cruise Line, if you're looking to upgrade someone, I volunteer as tribute.
Right.
I mean, we talk about concierge a lot on our show. Because I think, there is always that question mark for people. Is it worth the price and all of that? And I think my personal opinion, generally speaking, no. If you're paying full price for a concierge room, it's hard to justify unless, if you're somebody who is like very wealthy and money is not an object, you go for it, like more power to you. But if you're making if it's that decision between two cruises or concierge cruise, right? Like I'm with you, Matt. I think I pick two cruises every time. And when we've sailed concierge multiple times and have now sort of come to this, thought process. But on the other hand, when I've gotten, a discount, because of an issue on a sailing, if I'm able to apply that to a concierge, you bet I'm booking a concierge room, right? So there are some wonderful benefits to it. So it's certainly not a thing that I would ever poo-poo, but it's just a matter of that, and that worth it question is so different to every person, and I think the answer though of is it worth those extra concierge gratuities?
Yes.
110%, right? Like that's an easy, right? Like if it's a difference of a couple $100 in gratuities, never say no to, it is really a free upgrade because your room, you're not paying a difference in the room. You're just paying the difference in the gratuities. And that's because there are more staff that have to be covered by your gratuities than if you're sailing regular because you've got all the staff in the lounge and you also have with the stateroom attendant, you always have a stateroom attendant and an assistant stateroom attendant. You have a team of two. Yeah.
Yeah. And our whole approach to the cruise, I think, was different than if we had paid for it, because I think surely at some point we probably would have done it just to see what it was like. But like you, we're not independently wealthy. We're both professionals. We do fine, but we, have to pick and choose how we spend our vacation dollars. And I just know myself, if we had paid for it the whole time, I would have been like, is this worth it? Is this worth it? Right? Doing the math in my head. And it really, as we'll talk about, I don't think it's really, you can't make up for it with the math, right?
Right.
I heard y'all say in a recent podcast, if you're trying to drink enough to make up, for it, you can't do that, right? So it's got to be something about the concierge experience that adds value outside of each of the individual items that you're getting for free that you'd otherwise have to pay for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's, Disney does have pay to play structure a lot at the parks. And then there's some of that on the cruise line, right? But this, you cannot say, oh yeah, I drank 10 drinks at the concierge lounge and that made the math isn't mathing. It just doesn't, you can't drink enough. Maybe there are people who can, I can't drink enough. Yeah, exactly. To make up that cost differential. I could do it for $200 of extra gratuity.
Yes,
absolutely,
yes, for sure.
but not for the thousands of dollar difference. Well, I want to talk about the planning. I want to back up because we're going to talk about your night before and your reveal to your kids, but what stuff were you able to book that maybe you had not booked before? I'm thinking Cabana is an option, right? If you're sailing concierge.
So of course we did not have the concierge.
Oh, you didn't have to
after we booked. Yes. So because they didn't email us till 2 weeks before the cruise.
That's right. So you don't
right. But it was our first cruise booking as platinum. So my wife and I were platinum. The kids became platinum on the cruise. So of course, us being in the stateroom, we were able to book. And so I stayed up and booked. And It was, I booked Palo brunch for us because it's platinum. This was our first one. We were getting a complimentary.
Oh, you're getting your free Palo brunch.
Yeah. So that was really nice. And a couple tastings here and there, which we ended up not doing. Once we got Concierge, we were like, why would we do this tasting? We're going to experience the Concierge. But the last thing I looked at was, well, let's see if there's anything at Lookout, any experiences at Lookout. We've been there. My wife and I have been there twice. The kids have been there once. And so I looked and there's cabanas available. Multiple cabanas were available. And so that was a real shock. So I actually booked two because my wife's asleep. And I'm like, well, let me book two. And then we can talk about which one we want or whether we want to do one. We quickly decided, yes, we did want to do one, that it was worth it. And so we booked the cabana as platinum and there were multiple cabanas available, which I was kind of surprised by.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe it does make sense in the sense of concierge rooms being available, right? Obviously, which caused you to get an upgrade. And then cabanas not being sold out, at least as of the time of platinum opening, which tells me two things. It tells me concierge wasn't sold out. And it also tells me that perhaps there weren't that many Pearl cruisers on your sailing as well. And so that means more availability for platinums. But yeah, there is generally now, Lookout has more cabana availability than Castaway used to have. And now Castaway has a lot of cabana availability with the new Mickey and Minnie Cove cabanas being added. So I do think that the demand maybe has lessened a little bit, but just sort of the nature of supply and demand. And then Lookout, it's a mixed bag because you're so far away from the family beach stuff, right? And so I love the Mabrika Cove cabanas, which are the family cabanas at Lookout. But it's a trade-off, right? Between being at these beautiful cabanas on this, beautiful spot on the ocean and you get a great view of the ship, but you do not have all of the other stuff that is available, like the water slides at Rush Out, Gush Out, the Junkanoo Parade, the bigger shop. You have the little stand right there, but not much of a shop. So there's those kinds of, trade-offs of being a little bit more, I don't know, off the beaten path, secluded. Yeah. That's the great word. Yeah. Secluded. Yeah. All right. Well, okay. So you book the cabana, you book your Palo brunch, you book some drink tastings, which you end up canceling later. Let's talk about night before the cruise. You head down. So you guys, your tradition is you head down to Cocoa Beach for the night.
Yes. So we typically stay down there the night before in a hotel in Cape Canaveral. And we stayed at a couple different hotels. It's been really interesting over the last few years seeing the growth down there. I think it probably has to do with the space program and sort of the rebirth of the space program. But traditionally, we do like to get down there a little earlier than we did this time on the day before because we like to watch the ships sail out.
Oh yeah, because you have a bunch of ships coming
like
out
around 4 or 5 o'clock. So there's several restaurants right down there on the port. We've been to a couple of them, but our tradition is to go to Fish Lips, which is right there on the water, and sit either outside or with a view and watch the ships go out. Of course, this time we were a little later getting there because of the Mardi Gras parade. So we got there around 8 o'clock or so, and had, there was actually a ship there. I think it was staying there. I think it was maybe an overnight port on one of the cruises, or maybe it was a port. It wasn't they weren't leaving from, embarking.
Oh yeah,
from Port Canaveral.
Stop. There are.
It was a port stop.
Yeah, actually, my sister took a cruise on Royal where one of their port stops, because they left from Baltimore, so it went out of Baltimore and went down to the Bahamas and back. And one of their port days was at Port Canaveral, and of course, the big excursion being going to the Kennedy Space Center there.
Yeah, so we had dinner there outside. It was a beautiful night, and we told our kids, kind of gave them the surprise about Concierge. Our daughter had sort of figured it out. She's the type, especially once we got, they're very busy with their activities and school, and they're not teenagers, not thinking about the trip till we kind of get down there. And then she's kind of messing around in the app, and she's like, "What's up with this room that we're staying in?" I mean, we were because she helped pick the room, with us, and was excited about the room, and we're just like making stuff up, like, well, we weren't sure about that aft room, and we heard that you get soot from the engines, and the engines are real loud. I have heard that. I don't know if it's true, but so she was real suspicious and kind of asking questions, but she also knows, like, it's not really my style to splurge on concierge. So I think she was confused. Our son was just kind of going with the flow. And then, of course, what we told them, they were very excited. Of course, wanted to know, how did this happen? And so we had to, of course, tell that whole story. And then our tradition, which I don't know if we're the only ones who have this tradition, but I have to think we're among them. A few cruises ago, my wife had this idea that we would all get up early the morning of the cruise and drive, because we stay like half a mile from the port, just right on the other side of that bridge, and go down and watch the ship come in to port.
Oh, fun!
Yeah. So we typically do that. That's usually around 5:30. You would imagine teenagers, but for this, they are excited to get up, and then we will usually drive over to the Cocoa Beach Starbucks, get our Starbucks, and then maybe go to the beach, watch the sunrise, and then go get breakfast. So there's a couple different breakfast places we like there in Cocoa Beach. And then we'll go back, I'll take a nap, and then get ready to go over to the port. So this time the ship came in like super early at like 3. So we didn't get to go see, we weren't going to get up that early. So we didn't get to see the Fantasy come in, but we did go over to Starbucks and kind of drive around, go down and see the ship in port and everything. So, that morning of, you're always so excited, and that anticipation is so great.
I am shocked that your teens will get up for a 5:00 in the morning ship, coming in, because I will tell you, there is no way that I'd be able to get Nathan. I would do it. I would be right there with you, Matt. I'd be like, sign me up. I'll go to for both the Starbucks, the breakfast, the ship coming in, all of that. Sounds like a great morning to me. I'm up early generally anyway, but yeah, there's no way I would be able to get Nathan up for a 5 a.m. or 5:30.
I'd say when we started doing it, they were younger, and so now it's become such a tradition. They know they look forward to it and know they'd, be letting us down a little bit if they didn't. So, and they're excited to do it too. Yeah, it's kind of fun. So this time we knew our original port arrival time had been, because we booked that also before the concierge, was at like 12:30. And so we weren't sure how we were like, even if they buy the story about not wanting to stay in the room, when we're like, going over to the port at 10:30 instead of 12:30, we weren't sure how we were going to convince them that wasn't something different or changed. So then we headed over to the port around 10:30, 10:45.
I think that's the right way to handle it. You kind of have to let them know at least the night before or that morning early enough so that you can take advantage of that early boarding time and getting to the port. And there's, of course, a lounge that is for concierge in the port. That's where you first are introduced to your concierge host. So I recommend, if you are sailing concierge, to take advantage of that early port arrival time and the earlier time on the ship, because you get more, you have just more time on the ship that day, but also that first opportunity to meet the concierge hosts, who often come into the lounge, and depending upon what ship you're on, you may also see them at lunch, but it's just kind of a nice introduction into the experience and understanding all of the benefits of concierge, because that's something, we talk about it on the show, but if you haven't experienced it, it might not be something you're paying attention to, before you've done it yourself. Once you do it yourself, you're paying attention. You're like, what are all the things I can take advantage of on the ship? How do I milk this for everything it's worth? All right. Well, okay. So you guys head to the port early. Tell us about the embarkation or check-in process. You guys go to the concierge check-in desk and all of that. Is everything smooth sailing in terms of check-in?
Yep, super easy, super fast. They gave us a sticker when you go through there. It's the gold sticker for concierge, and then of course, as soon as you go up the escalator, they realize you're concierge, so they kind of escort you back to the concierge lounge, which was great. I mean, of course, we've known it's there, and it's this mysterious, behind the wall concierge lounge. I mean, it's just a room, and they've got, a fridge with soft drinks and, space there for you. But the concierge staff did come in. It was our first chance to meet them and kind of go through and, like you said, tell us some of the perks of concierge, a lot of which we knew already, because once we, the 2 weeks ahead of time, my wife and I really started doing our research and thinking about, okay, wow, what are we getting now? And then obviously getting on the ship was super easy. They escort you onto the ship. You're kind of the first ones on, I think, maybe other than people who were doing it back to back. And we did go straight to the lunch, the concierge lunch, which we are sit down lunch people. We always do a sit down lunch. You'll sort of hear we kind of have these traditions that we do and we like to do. And that was what made this ship, this sailing so much fun, because we kind of switched it up a little bit. And it was like almost like being on a different ship or a bit different or small, just doing things a little bit different. But
you went to a different location for lunch.
Well, different location, yeah. So we went to Royal Court instead of Animators, which is where we would typically have gone. But we've only ever done Cabanas once, and it was the one my wife and I went on ourselves. We said the kids would never go because they're like, the sit-down lunch is how we do. And we actually typically even order the same thing at the lunch. And I'm like, I don't know if I want the muffalata this time. Well, Dad, you always get it. And we sort of solidified that when we were cruising, a couple of cruises we did during COVID where you had to get the testing. I don't think unless you lived through that experience of showing up and not knowing if you were getting on the ship until the test cleared. And one time we did the test and they're like, we get the email and it's like, one of you is inconclusive and you have to retest. And of course it was me. So I had to go down and retest and the kids are like, Dad has COVID. And I'm like, I don't have COVID. I feel fine. And of course I was fine. But that getting on the ship and sitting down in the sit down lunch and like, we're on vacation, we can breathe. If you hadn't been through that, I mean, the last thing we wanted to do was go up into the chaos of Cabana. So we love Cabanas, but just at that moment, that's not what we want to do. So we went to Royal Court. It's very similar menu. There's a couple additional things on the menu, and of course, free drinks also at the concierge lunch. And it was great. It was very relaxing. Service took a while, I think, because everyone kind of went straight there when they came in. So it took a little longer than it typically does. But then we headed up to the room, which one perk is you get into the room earlier. So they did say, when the concierge staff came out to the terminal, they said, well, you get in the room at 12:30, and those of you on deck 10, because some of the rooms on deck 10 are concierge and some of them are not, they said if the blue rope might be up, but just duck under it. We're like, really? Just duck under it? And they said, yeah, your room will be available at 12:30. So
it's the same on the Wish, Treasure, and Destiny. If you have one of those rooms in the front of the ship, it's on deck. It's deck 11, I want to say, and maybe also deck 10. Yeah, you have to do the same thing. You have to just duck under the rope. And then also on the Magic and the Wonder, it's on deck 8, where it's a mix of concierge and non-concierge rooms, and so you just have to duck under. So yeah, it's one of those things, and other guests will see you doing it and they'll look at you sideways, but just keep moving.
That's right. Yeah. It so happened there was a stateroom attendant standing there when we walked in, and he opened it for us. So we actually didn't have to duck under it. He saw our stickers again and let us in, and we went over to the room.
And that's really the reason for the stickers, by the way. So people always think, oh, it's like a, it's a humble brag or whatever. You're wearing this gold sticker, right? And I guess it is a little bit, but it really is so that the staff can direct you to the right lunch. So the staff can direct you that you can, that you can access your room earlier, right? Like it does differentiate you just for that first day. And then after that, nobody knows anything unless they're looking at your key card, because your key to the world card is a different color than the regular key to the world card, which is another thing people don't know. But that's, again, just so like when you're getting popcorn at the movie theater, you get free popcorn instead of having to pay for it when you show that key to the world card. Yeah. So yeah, it's all those little things. Let's change topics. I want to talk about the concierge lounge because we know that it was updated in the dry dock and expanded. They did that both on the Fantasy and on the Dream. Really, really nice, expansion, and gave you some actual ability to see the ocean, which you couldn't do from those concierge sun decks. And they both have, I believe, a hot tub on their sun deck as well, although no other water feature. But that's an upgrade as compared to the Magic and the Wonder, which have no water feature. In fact, the Magic has no sun deck. What did you guys think of the lounge as a benefit? Obviously there's food in there pretty much all the time. You can have your kind of lighter breakfast in there if you want to avoid going to, Cabanas or to Cove Cafe and whatnot. Yeah. How much use did you feel like you got out of the lounge?
Quite a bit. So I would say the lounge and the sun deck were probably our favorite perk of Concierge. So like I said, our kids are teenagers. They're a little bit older, and kind of the way we do things, they are pretty independent when we're on the ship. They do not really go to the kids clubs. They did a little bit when they were younger, and they had to go to the kids clubs for us to do things like Palo or go to the spa or things like that. But now they don't really go. They don't go to the teen clubs, and so they like to have their independence. If sometimes we'll do things together. Sometimes Angie and I might go to an adult trivia or an adult show or something like that, and they'll kind of do their own thing. And so that ability for us as a family, but for them also, just the two of them to go up to the lounge and grab a drink, grab a bite to eat was great. The sun deck was really, really nice. We typically are not we don't hang out a ton on the main pool deck, like where the kid soup is and the funnel vision and everything during the prime hours. When we are looking to have some outdoor time and pool time, we kind of try to find areas that are a little quieter. Like I think it's the Wish class that has the Chippendale pool. Like it's a little quieter. We'd go there. And so that sun deck was so nice. It was never really very crowded. The only time we saw the concierge lounge crowded was disembarkation when everyone was kind of up there getting off the ship. Even at sort of prime time, 5:00, when they would open because the way it works with the drinks, they have a bar in there. It is open the first afternoon for basically from when you get on the ship until about 3 or 4 o'clock. And they have complimentary drinks like champagne, beer, and wine, and like Cloud and Blue for the kids. And then, but that's the only day that the bar is open for complimentary drinks. It's open all the time to pay for drinks. And then in the evenings, I think it's 5 to 10 or 5 to 11 or something like that. It's open for complimentary. So of course at 5, a lot of people are going to get their complimentary drink. And so even then it wasn't that crowded. I mean, because people have different dining times and people are, doing their thing, going to different places. So that time of day was really great for us. So we went to shows on 2 of the nights. And we saw Aladdin, and we saw Frozen, and we took advantage of the perk in Concierge to show up at the lounge, and then they actually take you down early to the show. I think you have to get there about 40 minutes before the show starts, and then they take you down in a freight elevator, actually, or staff elevator, and sort of backstage, and then you get off the elevator and you're in the Walt Disney Theater, and like you mentioned earlier, they hand you the popcorn. I mean, that is really a little perk. I mean, popcorn is not that expensive, but, typically, being cost conscious, I'm like lugging the popcorn bucket on from the previous cruise, right? And so, because I don't want to pay for the new popcorn bucket. And so, and then we're
the $2 refill.
That's right. And then we're passing the bucket around, right? And so for us each to have our own popcorn, like our son, it doesn't even like popcorn, but he's like, oh, like I have my own and I can like eat it, but no one's like grabbing in the bucket. And it was just like really nice. So we could pick whatever seat we wanted. And that was just a great time for us to, just kind of be there as a family and hanging out and having a drink or mocktail for the kids or soda, and then waiting for the show to start. And so we did that 2 nights. And then the other 2 nights, we didn't go to the show, and we really just had some time up as a family and the sun deck. We got in the hot tub, and it was really like almost like a private. There was hardly anyone up there at all. So the lounge, I understand, like you mentioned, we never went in it, of course, before. It is now Hercules-themed, but very subtly Hercules-themed. So there's some artwork, I think, from the animation. It's very, well appointed, and then, pretty good size. There's like the main area with the bar, but then you sort of go back down a hallway where they have the food set up, and there's some additional chairs out there. And then you go up outside and up a staircase to get to the concierge lounge, which, yes, it does go out to the, I can't remember whether it's port or starboard, but it does go all the way to the railing. So you can see out from there. Another really nice perk of that sun deck was for the Pirate Night fireworks. So, of course, they have the show on the fantasy. It is not the Pirate Parlay that they have on the Wish class, but they have the deck show. And of course, we've gone to that a number of times. We like to watch the fireworks. We don't necessarily need to see the deck show again. And so, we were able to go up there to the sun deck maybe 15, 20 minutes before the show, get a drink or not, whatever your preference is, and then get on our lounger. They're walking around with blankets, handing them out, and sit there and be just, relaxed and not too crowded, and watch the fireworks from the concierge deck, which was super nice. So again, not something you can necessarily put a price on. But it allowed our kids to have some additional independence, even more so, and really felt like a smaller ship within a ship in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. And that's, I think, the concept that most of the cruise lines are going for with their concierge experience. Obviously some cruise lines call it Rockstar, Mega Rockstar on Virgin. They call it the Retreat on Celebrity. They call it C class, Star class, and Sky class on I'm doing that the wrong order. C, Sky, Star on Royal, right? Like they have different names for it, but they're trying to create this sort of ship within a ship concept where you don't feel like you are with 2,000 or 4,000 people on the ship. You feel like you're just with maybe a couple hundred people on the ship, because the people that you run into over and over again are more likely to be people who are also staying in concierge, because you're going into that lounge, you're being escorted to the theater together as a group. All of those things really do sort of, I think they create a circumstance where you kind of can relax a little bit more. I'm not saying it's a necessary thing. There are plenty of people can relax without having any concierge benefits, but it is nice to not have to sort of do some of that extra waiting, that extra planning. You still, of course, as you mentioned, you got to go, depending on the ship, maybe 30 minutes or 40 minutes for, wherever the meeting spot is for the show. But it means I'm not standing in the hallway for an hour if I want to get a front row seat for whatever the stage show is. So it's just it doesn't mean you're not waiting. It's just, you're perhaps waiting in a more comfortable circumstance, right? Like I'm sitting on a chair with a drink in my hand instead of standing in a hallway or sitting on the floor in the hallway, right? So
I'm sure that's even more of a perk for the new shows and the Moana, and we have been on the Treasure and did go down there an hour ahead of time to get in line to see that. So for that and for Hercules on the Destiny, I'm sure that's a tremendous perk. Those shows, the Aladdin and Frozen, we love them, but they're on multiple ships, and a lot of people have seen them, so the lines weren't quite as long.
Yeah, they've been the shows that have been around for longer just don't have that same level of demand, right? You have an easier time getting a good seat in the Walt Disney Theater because a lot of people who are on the ship have already been, and they may decide, I'm going to skip the show tonight. I've seen that. I've seen Aladdin 10 times before. I've seen, Frozen multiple times before. I mean, there are diehards like me who want to go and see, almost every show or every show, depending. But there are plenty of people who are like, okay, I've seen that one. I mean, you guys chose the third show you skipped, which would have been Believe.
Yes, yeah. I think that's right. Yeah, which we have seen. So we like it, but we were just enjoying ourselves up there. I will say the hot tub is a real perk because, as you know, hot tubs are kind of at a premium on Disney Cruise Line, particularly for kids. I mean, like the Wish class, there's, I think, one hot tub that's not in the spa, and it's in the adult area.
Right. There's none for the kids. There's no family hot tubs on the Wish class.
They really, our kids like to do stuff. They like to do kid stuff, but they like to do stuff. They've always liked to go out to nice dinners and do those sorts of things. And so they had a feeling like, almost like doing things that are in the adult area. It had a feel for the adult area, but of course they can't go to that yet because they're, still underage. So, but the concierge sun deck kind of gave them that feel.
Absolutely. I want to pivot over to Lookout because you guys did get to experience a cabana for the first time. And of course, you mentioned it wasn't because you were staying concierge. It just happened to be that they were one still available when your platinum booking window opened. Which cabana did you end up choosing? What did you think of the cabana experience? And how was the erosion issue at the cabanas? I know that's been a big issue over at Mabrika Cove area.
Yes, we were tracking that a lot on YouTube and all of that ahead of time. So we chose, I believe it was Cabana 14. So it was about halfway down, a little more than halfway, just past where the food is. And the erosion, I will say, was fine. They have, for now, fixed it at both ends of the beach. It looked like we walked all the way down both ends of the beach, and the erosion, at least when we were there, was in good shape. It was a picture perfect day. I mean, amazing weather. And I will say, because I know at some point you're going to ask probably, do you always have to do concierge again? Now can you go back?
Of course.
And I will say, spoiler alert, the answer is no. We did really like it. And I think we will do it again. But we don't feel like we would have to do it all the time. But this cabana, it's going to be hard to go back to being on the beach.
I think that's hilarious. So it's funny because, of course, one of the benefits for concierge is the availability the ability to get a cabana. Now, of course, you being platinum, you have some ability. It just depends on the sailing. It really is going to depend on just and same with Pearl. We're Pearl, and sometimes we can get a cabana just being Pearl, and other times there's zero chance of getting a cabana. It's so funny. It really, how full is the sailing, but also how full is concierge? That's really the biggest factor that impacts that cabana availability.
So I'll say this. I mean, both with regards to the cabana and the concierge, like we would not recommend them for a first time cruiser. I mean, I feel like you should experience Disney Cruise Line as it is, which is wonderful. And again, we love it. Obviously we keep coming back, and it's a product that we think is worth the value for our family, but it would be hard to know what to compare it to. Right. And there's that other area of the island where the main beaches are, and the family beach and the adult beach and the food and the things you mentioned, the splash pad and the Junkanoo parade and all of that. We've experienced that before. So, but I heard an episode recently that you all did where you went on the Treasure and you went to the new cabanas, right, at Castaway. And I was kind of comparing it to our experience. And one thing that makes these cabanas great is they're actually much closer to the
much closer to the ship. Yeah, your access is fantastic.
So once you get over that pier, you're there. You don't have to worry about getting on the tram. And it is just we love looking at the ship. We love having that view of the ship. So, and thinking about, of course, Castaway, this is the first, I don't know if it was the first cruise we've been on, but one of the first where we didn't go to Castaway. So we've gone to Castaway several times. We love it. And we have a spot that we love going to at Castaway, which I'm not going to mention on your podcast because I don't want anyone else to take it. But it has it's I wouldn't call it private, but it's not quite as crowded. It's shady. You get to look back and have a really nice view of the ship, and we love that. And we felt like when we went to Lookout, the beach is gorgeous and it is amazing, but it is very crowded. The beach chairs are kind of lined up right next to each other, and it's a lot going on. And we just felt like the experience of having our own space, if not private beach, a very secluded beach, but we could hang out up on our deck. We could hang out down in the water. We could hang out in our, inside in the room. Of course, it's nice having the drinks and the snacks and all of that. The food, that was great. Having that right there, because the lines can get kind of long for the food at Lookout. So they have the food area that you can go get it. You can either eat over there, you can bring it back. It was very close to us. So we just brought it back and sat at the table outside on our back deck overlooking the beach, and it was great.
I think the only thing missing is the soft serve, right? I think that's the one thing.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. They have real ice cream, but it's
yes, they have hand scooped ice cream, but no soft serve there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they had some extra food items. Yeah.
Yeah.
That they don't have. Like they had a steak and tuna steak, and I think they had shrimp and crab claws too there, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
They definitely had that because we didn't get it, but I was surprised by that. I had not heard that before.
I don't think it wasn't there when the steak was there, and there was also there were also fish options, but I don't remember there being crab claws and shrimp, which, who doesn't love peel and eat shrimp and crab claws? Fantastic. Yeah.
So just the convenience and having that, it was, I mean, of course the weather was great. But we felt like we were, of course we got off as soon as we were able to get off in the morning, and we were able to stay there. That was one thing you mentioned, I think, about the new cabanas at Castaways. You felt like you didn't have enough time there. And we really felt like we had the whole day, I can't remember when I think it was about 3:45 or 4. We had to head back, but it was a great experience.
I love that. I think it's so funny how that works. How sometimes like it's the same with like the Castaway cabanas, right? Like to me, like the older cabanas at Castaway are the better option to the newer cabanas, but at Lookout, the ones that are more secluded, right, are the better option to for cabanas, or versus of course the only option on the regular beaches is the Serenity Bay, so the adult only cabanas over all the way on the other side. But yeah, I mean it's just funny how that works. It's not necessarily intuitive, right? It's not like, it's being secluded is not a negative, but I 100% agree with you. If somebody is a first timer going on Disney Cruise Line, don't get a cabana, even if there's one available to you. Don't sail concierge, even if you could maybe afford it for that one cruise. Like, because I do think you will miss out on the other experiences. I think it's great for someone you've been on the Fantasy, multiple times before. So you've experienced the rest of the ship. So the fact that you spend more time in the concierge lounge does not detract from the other offerings on board, because you can still go to your favorite things on board, and the things that you can skip, you just skip, right? And spend that time. So it's a nice balance, I think, for an experienced cruiser to have, just the opportunity to do concierge. And maybe it's a one and done. Maybe the person falls in love with it and that's their way of sailing. But I completely agree with you. I think not necessary. And I also would say for a cabana, we see in the Facebook groups all the time, people asking, oh, I really want to get a cabana. It's like a first time cruiser. I'm like, no, you're actually better off really experiencing, whether it's Castaway or Lookout, like experience the stuff that is available on the island, get that experience the first time, and then decide, is this something I would like to try or that's something I need? Now, there are people, of course, who have specific circumstances that maybe need a cabana for the shade or whatnot, medical disabilities, those kinds of things. But in general, you don't need a cabana as a general matter, even though it's a really lovely and wonderful thing to have. And maybe, Matt, you'll never go back if you can get it every time.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it was really great. It's probably the best beach day we've ever had as a family. We agree in that. It was picture perfect for sure.
Yeah. It does help with the sunburn as well, because you can get out of the shade or get out of the sun a little bit better, and have some place to reapply your sunscreen. And they're also equipped with sunscreen. As long as you're not picky about what kind of sunscreen, they usually have a copper tone cream sunscreen. They don't have any of the spray ones in the cabanas typically. All right, Matt. Well, let's jump back on board. Well, actually, let's jump over to Nassau. I got to ask, did you guys get off the ship at Nassau, or are you sea day is my Nassau day?
Yeah, it was a sea day for us. So we did our Palo brunch that day. My wife and I did our Palo brunch, and which was our complimentary first one as platinum, which was fun. Now that our kids are a little older, one of our family activities has become going to the gym together. So we did that. We all went up to the gym and worked out together. Actually, both Nassau Day and the at sea day. I'm a runner, and I sort of forgot. This is a tip because I was like, well, I'll wait till the Nassau Day to run around, because I like going to the gym and running on the treadmill, but I also love running around deck 4. But I sort of forgot that on the Nassau Day they're doing they're taking the lifeboats down and they're doing those sort of crew exercises, and you usually can't get all the way around the lap on deck 4. So
yeah, your best chance to run on the ship on deck 4 on the 4 classic ships. It's a horrible idea on the Wish class, because it's not even half of a loop that you get on the Wish class because of the stairs, and then the back is closed. So you can only do actually a U on the Wish class, but that includes going up 2 flights of stairs and going down 2 flights of stairs. So it's horrible. But on the 4 classic ships, the best day to run is on a sea day, because that's your best chance. I mean, they might still be doing some stuff. So you might still have to do a U, because sometimes they'll be doing, painting or maintenance or whatnot, but you'll have a chance of getting the full circle, versus if you're at port, there's almost no chance that you're going to have that full circle available because of whatever crew maintenance or exercises and all the stuff that they're doing on that deck, unfortunately. But yeah, good pro tip for those looking to get a run in.
Well, I was thinking, I don't get seasick. I found one of the reasons we put off doing a cruise is because I was afraid I would, but I haven't, knock on wood, gotten motion sick. But A couple times when I've been running, when the ship's moving, I've been like, it kind of throws off your equilibrium a little bit as you're doing those laps. And so I was like, oh, I'll wait till we're stopped in Nassau. But our kids went out to lunch when we went to Palo brunch. So they went out and did, the two of them, the sit down lunch. And it was so nice because it so happened our server from the main dining room was working at the lunch, and she saw them and took care of them and gave them a seat by the window. And it was super nice. It was one of those real nice Disney Cruise Line touches. Really nice, wonderful. Yeah, they felt very special.
I think that's great when the staff really like make that effort to have that connection, particularly with the kids, and to make them feel like welcome. And then they get to feel like they're kind of adult. I mean, and as you said, they're teens, so they are getting closer, right? And they get to feel that level of independence, but also get that level of service when it's just them. And it's not a situation of, oh, I'm catering to you because your parents are right in front of me. No, I'm catering to you because you are my customer also. And I think that that's just one of those lovely touches that we tend to see on Disney Cruise Line. Now, you can see it on other cruise lines as well, and sometimes you don't see it on Disney Cruise Line, but I think as a general matter, most of the time we see that. Now, what about some of the other activities on board? Do you guys do, trivias or family game shows or crafts or any of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we all sort of have our own favorite things that we kind of do them together. So we do love the trivia. Our daughter in particular loves the trivia. We never really win the family trivia, but there's the one we really like, although we're terrible at it, is the Disney music one where the pianist plays the songs on the piano. That's always a lot of fun, but then you can't quite recognize them. They don't sound exactly the same when they give the answer, you're like, oh, of course that was it. My wife loves to do the drawing. So she's an architect, and so she's a very good artist, and she loves to go to those drawing ones where they show the video, the Disney animator, and you draw along. And then typically one of us maybe is off doing something else, and then we'll show that person everyone's drawings without saying who's and whose.
And everybody has to guess. And
yes,
that person has to
yes,
guess. I love it.
Which is kind of fun.
Do they always figure out which one's Angie's because it's that much better than the rest of you?
Yes, 100%. Yes. Yeah. And so we did one of those. Our son usually likes to go see a movie. That's kind of a fun thing he likes to do, is go see a movie. And sometimes one of us will go with him. And then my wife and I like to do the music trivia quite a lot. So as well as, we go see Match Your Mate and those kind of things. But yeah, usually during the day, we may do the game shows as well. But it's, a combination of time by the pool. Of course, the Concierge Sun Deck was great this time, and some of the various activities around. Usually we're hearting all of the activities the first day, in the terminal when you first get on the app, and then we might get to half of them.
That's how I feel like I heart everything in the app, and then I'm lucky if I make it to like 50% of those things, because I just have FOMO, so I want to go to everything. But then ultimately I know, like, Brian is the relaxer. He's much better at that. I try and do a little bit of relaxing, but I inevitably am also running around to different activities. I try to balance. It's hard for me to do that though. Absolutely. Well, Matt, have we, actually, I want to ask you about food, because that's always, we have had a lot of hits and misses lately on Disney Cruise Line. I think we've been lucky to have mostly hits, and a few, kind of meh. But nothing really bad. But I actually did hear recently, we just recorded an episode yesterday where there was a few bad dishes. It sounds like you had a good serving team, but I'm curious, how did you find the food quality? I've already heard that they've changed up some of the menus. They're introducing new menus onto the Classic 4 ships, but I don't think they would have done that as of your sailing. You probably got all the classic menus.
It was the classic menus. We thought the food was very good. So a couple of the restaurants, we felt like it was our, best experience eating in those restaurants. And like I said, our server was terrific. Even though we'd eaten in these restaurants before, she really made it feel like we were eating in her house. I mean, she was so welcoming, and she was like, she was kind of impressed with our kids having a little bit more of a sophisticated palate. Like, the first night my son's ordering the duck, and she's like, okay,
She's
so
like, he's not ordering
we're doing something a little different here. So
not ordering pizza or
right. And so, but that's one of the things we love about Disney Cruise Line, is the ability to try new things. If we were going out, to a fancy restaurant, let's say at Walt Disney World, right? Okay. So if you order and then you don't like it, well, now what are you going to do? So you're going to have to order something else, or go hungry, or get food later at the resort. So the nice thing about the cruise line, it gives you opportunity. And I will say, with the concierge lounge, that provided some opportunity for like cocktails, that kind of thing for us. So like on pirate night, they have so many people order old fashions. They have the old fashions like pre-made behind the concierge bar, and just for you to add whatever bourbon you want, basically. And I like old fashions, but I want something different from time to time. And it was pirate night. So I asked the bartender, I kind of like something with rum in it. It's pirate night. I feel like I'd be more festive. I like old fashions, but I want something with rum. And he's like, well, have you ever had old Cuban? It's this drink with rum. And I was like, no, why don't you make it for me? And it was great. I mean, and I would have never thought to order it. And even if it had been on a menu, I'm not sure I would have ordered it because I'm like, I don't know if I would like this. And it costs $15 and I'll go with what I know. Right. So, the opportunity to kind of try those different things is a lot of fun. One of the things we like being on the cruise line. And with the desserts, she, from the first night, our server, Crystal, was like, I'm just going to bring out what I think you're going to like. Right. And so she just brought out these desserts and we sort of trusted her from the beginning. And it was great. It was a terrific, and sort of in the back of our minds, we're like, does she know we're concierge? And that's why she's treating us like this. And I don't know whether that's the case, whether she does or not.
So she does know your concierge. And I will tell you, and the reason I will tell you that is, as a general matter, there might be exceptions to every rule, but as a general matter, if you're sailing concierge, you're getting like better dining staff. I know I feel kind of bad saying this because we've had some great dining staff not sailing concierge, but they do try to ensure that the concierge guests are not getting like a brand new server. They are typically getting a more seasoned server, and typically the better performing servers are assigned to concierge tables. So that is something that does exist. That is a real thing. And so your service level, if you're saying concierge, you're in main dining overall, you should, if you don't have a good experience in main dining and you're sailing concierge, there is a problem and you should let the staff know. Now, regular sailing is hit or miss, right? You might get an awesome team and you might get a not so awesome team. I would say in general, the servers are quite good, but every once in a while, you get a dud, either personality wise or somebody who just doesn't really know what they're doing, and then it's total mess. But For
usually
me,
at least one of them is very solid.
Yes, usually.
Sometimes it'll be a super experienced main server, but then the assistant server is due. And although we have had some great pairs as well, of course, this was the only time we were concierge, and each of the other at least one and often both are really good.
Yeah. Absolutely. One thing you mentioned early on was canceling those drink tastings. And I'm curious how all that panned out. I actually think that's a really smart move. You're saying concierge, you're getting all of these included drinks if you want them. You don't have to take, you don't have to be someone who drinks alcohol to sail concierge, but it is one of the benefits that you get included drinks, as you mentioned, from 5 to 10 p.m. in the concierge lounge. I wish they would expand that so you could get your drinks in other places as well. But you can stop by the lounge and then take your drink wherever you're going for the evening. But, it does give you the opportunity to try different things. So like you said, you might not order off of a menu. You might, I think it's great if you can find a great bartender, and there are some in the lounge. You just give yourself over to them, kind of like you do with a tasting menu. Like just say, hey, I want a rum drink, or hey, I want a gin drink, right? Tell them what spirit you want and then let them create something for you. Did you find that was something that worked for you? Did you miss doing the drink tastings?
Yeah, I mean, we really didn't. We sort of said, it's not that long a cruise anyway, and we want to experience that, being in the lounge and all of that. We did have, like I mentioned, the one where, and there was a couple other occasions, and my son in particular really loves mocktails. And so he will do that often. He will say, I want something that has this flavor profile, and they will make
fruit,
it
or I want
exactly, earthy, not too sweet, something like that.
He's going to be a problem when he's.
I think so. Yes, actually, we talked a little bit about that. And like another experience, I will say we did sort of when we did pay for a drink, which we did maybe 2 or 3 times. You sort of have that moment like, should I be paying for a drink? Because I could be getting it but like we went to see Match Your Mate, which was in the Tube. And so we're in there, it's 10:30, and the tube is all the way on the other side of the ship from the concierge lounge. And it's like, well, they have this drink menu. We're sitting here like, let's just get a drink. Or we did the 80s music trivia there as well. And so one thing we did get, because our Palo server had recommended, we're big coffee drinkers. We love the Cove Cafe and love coffee. And on a previous sailing, Angie had an espresso martini and didn't really like it. And so I'd sort of been turned off of espresso martinis. And our server at Palo was like, you have to go to the Cove Cafe at this time of day to this person and get him to make you an espresso martini. And he did. And it was amazing. She loved it. So like that was an amazing experience for her as well. And just, yes, it's very true. On something like this, you can sort of give yourself over to the experience in a way that you might not do on land.
Yeah, absolutely. And you might not do when you're paying for the drink too, right? Like, I mean, obviously you did for the Cove Cafe espresso martini that was with a specific recommendation. But then in the lounge, you can do it because it's an included drink. So if you don't like it, don't drink it. It's the same with the dining, right? When, like you mentioned, if I'm buying duck at the parks and my kid doesn't like it, I care because now I've got to buy him another meal. But if he orders duck on the cruise line and he doesn't like it, oh well, the server will bring him something different, right? So it gives you quite a bit of freedom. Well, Matt, is there anything that we have missed, good, bad, or ugly? I like to say, it sounds like this was an amazing sailing. Sounds like you liked Concierge, but maybe wouldn't pay for it if you had to pay for it yourself.
We'll talk about that in a minute when you ask me what's coming next. But I will say one thing that happened, and the only reason I mentioned it is because it had never happened to us before. So I can't remember which night it was. It was either I think it was the second night. So at 3 a.m, there was an announcement through into the stateroom, and it was like assessment team. And it gave this message about, going to inspect something that was happening at the garbage silo. Right. And it was sort of like a coded kind of mysterious announcement. And our son slept through it. I don't know how. And when you're on the cruise, you're sleeping pretty hard. The movement of the ship and the bed's so comfortable and all of that. But it woke my wife and daughter and I up. And my wife went on the balcony. She's looking out. She's like, are we still moving? Are we still going the same direction? Like whatever. And so we come back in. We're going back to sleep. In about 20 minutes afterwards, they came over again, and they said, with regards to the previous announcement, basically don't worry about it. It was, it's been taken care of. There was never anyone in danger at any time. We're sorry for the inconvenience. And so I was sort of wondering, was it supposed to go to all the staterooms? Was it only supposed to go to the crew? And one of the crew, we asked, and one of the crew members told us afterwards the next day that there actually had been a small fire in the garbage silo. And so this was just their protocol there is a certain assessment team that goes and checks that. And I said, well, was it a mistake that they put it in everyone's stateroom rather than just to the crew? And they said, oh, no, that's on purpose, because if the fire does get they've started to that's that first protocol to wake people up to the next stage of actually you have to do something. You have to move to another part of the ship or something. So that was a new one for us. And she said, the crew member we talked to said it was relatively rare that sort of thing happens. We've had medical emergencies, having to turn around and go back into Nassau or whatever previously on previous cruises, but this was a new one for us.
Yeah, it is a very rare occurrence, but yeah, my impression was exactly what you were told by the crew member, which is that this is purposely announced for every stateroom. So it starts to stir people. So in case there is, obviously in the very, very, very rare case, in case there's some kind of evacuation that has to happen, people are already somewhat awake, and people can move faster if they need to, right? If it ends up being an emergency and everybody has to, get into the lifeboats or something like that, which is obviously the extreme circumstance, but they have all these different levels. It's like DEFCON 1, right? Or whatever, right? It's or not one, I guess is the opposite, right? It counts. I can't remember if DEFCON counts up or counts down, but whatever. It's it's the lowest level.
It counts. So 1 is the worst.
What is the worst? Okay, so
I know that from the 80s movie War Games with Matthew Broderick. Right. I remember that.
Yes. We love war games in this household. Yeah. Do you want to play a game?
Right, exactly. Yes. Globothermonuclear war.
Globothermonuclear war. That's right. Oh, we're aging ourselves, Matt.
We are.
All right.
Yes. You'll be able to hear from my some of my answers coming up and what I know is coming. You'll be able to tell what age I am.
I love it. All right. Well, we have reached that point in the show where I am going to subject to you some arbitrary rules, some arbitrary questions, and a dash of judgment, or the round we like to call rapid fire. Welcome to Rapid Fire, Matt. I'm going to ask you some Disney favorites, and then some Disney Cruise Line favorites. And of course, with Disney, you can answer anything and everything that Disney owns. So I'll start with, who is your favorite Disney character?
Well, this is tough, of course, but I sort of felt like I had to go classic, and we are huge dog people, so I'm going to say Pluto.
Yes, that's Nathan's favorite as well. All right, what is your favorite Disney movie?
Well, I'm going to pick two here, and they're two real formative Disney movies for our kids. Was sort of two of the movies that really got them into Disney when they were very little. So for our daughter, it's Tangled. Her favorite princess has always been Rapunzel. And it came out the same year she was born. And I must have watched that movie, I don't know how many times, but only the happy parts. So she would not, when she was like a preschooler, she would not watch the parts with Mother Gothel. Like we had to fast forward through those parts. And it was only till, older in elementary school, we'd actually watch the movie. But the part at the end with like the happy ending where the parents are hugging her, like I've seen hundreds of times. So Tangled. And then the other one, I remember specifically sitting down and watching one night with our son, and it was just the two of us, Wreck-It Ralph. So he loved it because, video games, and was really into it. And of course, all the 80s references, like there's the homeless Cubert sitting in the station and, where they're going out to all the video games. And so that's at a retro part. I almost picked Fix-It Felix for my favorite character, actually. But so those two, I think because of our kids and watching those when they were little, Tangled and Wreck-It Ralph are my two favorites.
I can't tell you how many times I watched the original Cars movie because of Nathan. So I totally understand that doesn't have really any like scary parts. So we didn't have to worry about fast forwarding like through Mother Gothel. But yeah, that's hilarious. All right. Favorite Disney song?
So I get to pick my own on this one. And my favorite Disney song is Lost in the Woods from Frozen 2.
Yes! So, that is like such a good song. Classic 80s ballad.
Power ballad. Our hot take here, we like Frozen 2 better than Frozen 1. So we like Frozen 1, but the music we just love so much in that movie.
I literally just had this same conversation the other day, Matt. I'm with you 100%. I think because of Lost in the Woods and Into the Unknown, I like Into the Unknown better than Let It Go. And Lost in the Woods is clearly the best song in all of the Frozen universe, like by far. Like,
if you watch the behind the scenes, they talk about Jonathan Groff and how they were trying to write him a song because he'd only had that one little snippet in the first one, and he's this amazing, renowned Broadway actor.
Voice, it's crazy they didn't take advantage of his voice. Absolutely, I love that. Okay, moving on to the ships. So we've got to talk your favorite Walt Disney theater stage show. So main stage show, not the variety acts, but it can be, one of the jukebox musicals or one of the full length, shows. Yeah.
So we do love Seize the Adventure. I think a lot of that is because it's the first night. And so you're so excited about being on the cruise. As far as the full length show, I think it's Beauty and the Beast. We've seen it on the Dream and the Treasure. Our hot take, which you might not like, is we were not as enamored with Moana. So we did like it. And the first half of it was like, blew you away. And we could not get over Maui. Like the difference in the Maui character between the movie. And I know they made it different on purpose because you don't have Dwayne Johnson to play him. But we had a hard time getting past that. And then it's funny because we're like, well, maybe we had the understudy. And so then we went back in the room, and you know how they were showing it in the room, and it was a different one, I assume from like the original cast, because we went on the Treasure last summer. So it was not the original cast for the Treasure. And it was, of course, the actors were fine. It just, something about that disconnect. I don't know. So it's Beauty and the Beast for us.
No, I understand that. I think you have to be very open-minded in setting aside Dwayne The Rock Johnson, like he is. You can get a wonderful Moana who can play Moana, right? You can get a wonderful, the parents or the grandma Tala, but like The Rock is so specific and he plays Maui in such a specific way. And then the animated character has such a specific look as well. And so it's like the combination of those things, unless you can really like separate it in your head, if you do that comparison, you're always going to be disappointed. And that's no shade to whoever's playing Maui. It's just impossible if you are not Dwayne The Rock Johnson to play Maui like he plays it, right? So, yeah, it's really, really hard.
That was one where our expectations from listening to your podcast and others were so high that it's like, if anything other than, but no, it's not your fault at all. But we enjoyed it for sure. And of course, if we go on the Treasure again, we'll go see it again. And we're very excited. If we do not have any plans to go out to Destiny right now, but for Hercules, because we do love that movie in our family.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's a great production as well. All right. Well, moving over to favorite onboard activity.
So I'm going to get to pick my own, and it is music trivia. So like the 80s music trivia, 70s, 90s. So I've got that stretch of like from like the late 70s to the late 90s where I have a really strong knowledge of pop music. So we actually my wife and I won the 80s music trivia on this most recent cruise. It was our second time winning that. And since we never typically do win the trivias, that was a real treat. But yeah, I have older sisters that kind of got me into pop music at a much younger age than probably most kids would be. And so yeah, that's probably my favorite activity. Of course, there's lots of things we like to do together as a family, but that's probably my favorite.
All right. Favorite rotational dining. And you can choose, of course, from any of the ships that you've been on.
So I have to give a shout out to Enchanted Garden because I love it. And it's usually the one that people like, it's the afterthought, but it has to be Coco. I mean, it's such a great experience. The food was amazing. And we actually, when we went on the Treasure, we actually went to Coco 5 times. So we had the embarkation lunch, 3 nights there, one night of which was the pirate menu, and then the breakfast the last day because we had gone there the last night of the cruise. So we actually went into the restaurant 5 times, although we only had the Coco experience, the dinner twice, both of which we liked a lot. So we loved both shows and both menus were great.
Awesome. All right. We got to talk food. I want a favorite sweet item and then a favorite savory item. We save savory for last because that's the best in my mind. And I'm the ruler of rapid fire, obviously.
Right. Yeah, obviously. And I agree with you. I prefer savory also. So I'm going to go sort of basic items here and things that I really think of when I think of the Disney cruise. So for the sweet, I'm going to say Castaway soft serve with the cookie. So put the soft serve in the cup instead of the cone and get a cookie and like smash it up in there and make a little sundae out of it.
Not even a sandwich. You're making your
sandwiches. I can't do the 2 cookies. That's a little much. Like I can't quite eat all that. So
yeah, you're making yourself. What do they call that in? Is it like Dairy Queen?
Like a blizzard.
Like a blizzard. Yes. You're making your a homemade
blizzard.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love
and then I felt like I just had to give for the savory. It's like our routine in the morning is usually I will go to Cove Cafe, get coffee for us. And usually our kids like something as well. And those warm croissants from Cove Cafe in the morning, it just starts out, how we start our day. Okay. Even though we were, had access to the Concierge Lounge, that was one that I think there was one morning, maybe I didn't get coffee, but got the croissant anyway. So that really is kind of peak Disney Cruise Line for me. So that I have to give a shout out to as my favorite savory item.
I love that. Okay. Well, the most important question, it's the second to last question of rapid fire. You knew this was coming. The most important question, your favorite Disney Cruise Line ship.
That's a tough one, of course.
I know. I think you only have 2 choices, and I know the 2 choices. Yeah.
So like I said, we've been on Fantasy, Dream, Magic, Treasure, and the Wish. I think it's the Fantasy. I think just simply because just the memories we've made on the Fantasy. We've been on 3 cruises. So the first was the 7-night on the Eastern Caribbean. We went on a cruise for my 50th birthday on the Fantasy, a 4-night, and then this most recent one where we had the Concierge experience. We did love the Treasure, and we loved our experience on it. We did the Western Caribbean on the Treasure, and we love them all. We love have different things about them, but if I had to pick one, again, kind of peak Disney Cruise Line, I'd say the Fantasy.
Awesome. All right. Now, the last question of rapid fire before I ask you what's next is, of course, your bucket list cruise. Matt, if you could go anywhere in the world on a Disney Cruise Line ship, it doesn't even have to be someplace that Disney Cruise Line goes currently. It could just be someplace accessible by water. Where are you going?
So I don't think I've ever heard this one mentioned on your podcast, but you would know. And it is a trip to the Holy Land So I've seen Holy Land cruises, but other cruise lines, and that's someplace we'd never been to Israel, and then some of the other sites down there, like in Greece and Turkey and some of those other areas. Obviously, right now, probably not able to go there because of the situation, the instability over there. That's one that I would love to do, to be able to go see some of those amazing kind of spiritual, historic sites during the day, but then to be able to kind of go from place to place on the Disney Cruise Line would be amazing. Yeah.
That would be an amazing itinerary. I think you're right. I don't think we've heard that before on the podcast, but I think that would be an amazing itinerary. There was some of those sites were going to be on that world cruise that we covered with our friends Leslie and Jenny, but then that part of their cruise actually got cut, and so they ended up having to make. In fact, Leslie and her sailing mate, they went and did those sites themselves. So they took sort of a detour off of the ship and went and still did some of those sites. But yeah, the world cruise was supposed to cover some of it, not all of it, obviously. It just depends sort of on the itinerary, but there are some really cool cruises that do that. So yeah, that would be a fantastic one. All right. Well, Matt, you passed with flying colors. Really no judgment. You get bonus points for picking both into Lost in the Woods, and also extra bonus points for picking Beauty and the Beast, of course. So yeah, so flying colors on all of that. But of course, the most important question that Brian would want me to ask is, what have you got booked next? Do you have a placeholder? Do you actually have a booking? Are you considering Concierge again?
Yeah, so we actually have 2 bookings. One we've had booked for 2 years, and it's coming up this summer, 26, Alaska on the Wonder. So we have not been on the Wonder, and so we're doing that in July.
This is a bucket list cruise, Matt.
I know. So funny thing is, our date to book excursions was our last night on the spring break cruise. And so I actually won another perk we haven't mentioned, is you get free Wi-Fi for 24 hours and I used it on the last night to book from my bed in my stateroom the excursions for Alaska.
Very smart to save that 24. So we always use it on the first day and burn through it. But if we stay Concierge, we use that 24 hours and we're done with it, and then we pay for internet. But like, really smart if you don't want to pay for internet and you use that 24-hour benefit at the end.
We told our kids we all get 24-hour. One of the things, of course, we love being on a cruise with our teenagers is there's no access to the internet and not on their phones and all that. So we're like, all right, you get 24 hours. You can pick the 24 hours. But remember, you probably don't want to pick the Lookout Day because we're going to be off the ship and all that. So yeah, so that's coming up in July. And then relevant to the Concierge, we had a couple of other cruises booked for next year, 27, and we ended up consolidating them into a spring break Concierge back on the Fantasy. So that's one where we sort of decided we're going to do, in this case, quality over quantity. And I hate to say that because they're all quality on Disney Cruise Line, but we did also on that one get a deal because at least the time we booked, they were running they had never run the placeholder. We did use a placeholder for that, and you could never use a placeholder on, of course, Concierge. But right now, I think it's 10%. Or it was at the time we booked it.
Yeah, it depends on the sailing. Not all sailings are eligible for it, but there are select sailings that you can actually use that placeholder discount. So it always used to be you could still apply the deposit to a concierge sailing, but you wouldn't get the 10% off. So the benefit of the placeholder was worthless if you used it on a concierge sailing, right? But now there are some, they have run some deals at times where you can use it, but it's not on every sailing. But that's a great benefit. Just getting even, 10% off can change that calculus of, is it worth it? Right. And that's the thing that's why I urge people to figure out what's worth it to you, because what's worth it to me is not necessarily worth it to you, and vice versa, right? We all have our own decision making about what is important and what is our, what's the benefit that we'll get and how much will we use that benefit. And so I think it's a very individual decision. And so I urge people when they're thinking about booking, that goes for any stateroom category. For you, if you want to do and the you I'm using is the general you, not Matt specifically, but if you think, inside stateroom is great for your family, or if you need to stay in the 2-bedroom, tower suite, great, whatever works for you and your family, that calculus is going to be different for every person.
I should mention on the Alaska cruise, we did book so with teenagers, one room is becoming more and more of a challenge, especially our son is, getting pretty big for, almost 14. And that top bunk doesn't get any bigger. So we did book for Alaska for the first time 2 rooms, and we got a navigator veranda and an inside stateroom across the hall. And that combination was actually cheaper than a regular veranda room on the Wonder, a 1 room. I think because there's fewer of the larger veranda room, which is what we normally get. So I think because there's fewer of those on the classic ships. So we're sort of excited to have a little more space, and I've already called that bed in the inside stateroom. I think it's going to be a great night's sleep.
Some people love those. Some people love the darkness of an inside stateroom. Oh my God, Matt, you're just gonna love Alaska. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Matt. It's been awesome chatting with you. Thanks again for being a Patreon. For those who don't know what that is, that means that you are somebody who basically spends some amount of money every month helping support our show. And so it does take money to put on this show. We, when we first started, we didn't have Patreons. We didn't have a sponsor. We were funding the show completely ourselves. And now we've gotten to the point where we actually are able to not just fund the show, but every year make charitable contributions with whatever excess we take in through Patreons and sponsorships. And so we like to donate to the University of Washington Autism Center. We like to donate to Give Kids the World. We're trying to donate to causes that mean something to us, but and some causes that are also sort of connected to the Disney community as well. So, but thank you again, Matt, for your support. Thanks to everyone for listening. And with that, I'll just say thanks.
Thanks, Sam.
Well, thanks to everyone out there for listening this week. We really, really appreciate it. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you can keep getting great content from us every week. In fact, twice a week we publish shows. So be sure to hit the subscribe button to get all of those great episodes. And if you want to watch us live, we have a live show now every week, Monday nights, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Eastern over on youtube.com/DCL Duo. So be sure to head over and check that out. If you want to help support the show, be sure to hit those 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. And if you leave us a written review, a 5-star written review, we will read it at the top of one of our main episodes. So please head over there and hit those 5 stars. If you've got questions or you'd like to connect with us, the best way to do that is to head over to DCLDuo.com. It's got links to all of our things, full catalog of the podcast episodes, including a searchable catalog for the podcast, links off to our vlog, a link to our Etsy store where we sell some fun fan-inspired magnets, link to our Patreon if you'd like to help directly support the show each and every month. Just head over to the website or patreon.com/DCLDuo. Also has a way for you to sign up for our Substack newsletter that we're hoping to start really pumping out monthly here at least, and a few blog articles that we've written. So DCLDuo.com is the best way to connect with us. You can also, of course, email us at info@DCLDuo.com or reach out to us on our voicemail line at 402-413-5590. That's 402-413-5590. The DCL Duo podcast is not affiliated with Disney Cruise Line, the Disney Company, or the Disney family of theme parks. The views expressed on the show are solely those of the individuals on the podcast and in no way reflect the views of the Disney Company company or Disney Cruise Line. If you have questions about a Disney cruise or a Disney vacation, please contact the great folks over at My Path Unwinding Travel or Disney directly or your own travel agent. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time for another fabulous adventure with the DCL Duo. Good night.